Good afternoon. Great to have you back. You and I, 24 hours ago, were reflecting on different elements of the Exodus account. Moses taking the Israelite people, God's firstborn, by holy and spiritual generation, out of bondage, out of slavery, into freedom, and through a lot of years and a lot of tears and a lot of hard work into the Holy Land. We had spoken quite a bit about what Passover, what it really meant. The fact that they had to eat as pilgrims in flight, as refugees, as migrants, as immigrants who have to leave a very dangerous place into, hopefully, their homeland. They had to eat as pilgrims on a journey. We spoke about yesterday, especially the lamb, and how if you took a lamb and you were in bondage in Egypt, how that very act would be considered um, liable to put you to death. If you took a lamb and you slaughtered it, you were considered to be committing deicide. And so, too, it would ruin your day. So God not only tells the Jewish people to take a lamb, but to take the blood and put it out on the doorposts and lintels. It is the Passover of the Lord. By putting the blood on the doorposts and lintels, the Jewish people were putting their life on the line. In order to be free, they had to put their life on the line. And so too they did. And God delivered them. Every single element of the Passover meal and the Passover account, every detail is worth unpacking. Why bitter herbs? Why the lamb had to be cooked a certain way? Why it had to be unblemished? The very unique lamb, a lamb like none other. Every single element is important. But you and I are going to move on. We're going to move on to Exodus 32. I would encourage you to read Exodus 32 line by line. Now, as we enter Exodus 32, remember, the people now have been through the Red Sea. God has delivered them. God opened up the Red Sea before them, and they walked through it as if it were dry land. Pharaoh and his chariots and charioteers in pursuit, and God caved in the walls of the water around them. A beautiful, beautiful narrative. But remember, when the people left Egypt, they left not only with livestock, but they left with gold. Gold. So in Exodus 32, Moses has an experience of going up and down the mountain. And Moses not only is appointed to be mediator by God, but he's also a mediator for the people. When Moses goes up the mountain, there is great cataclysmic experiences. And so the people are afraid to approach God. So Moses not only is the mediator between God and man, but the people affirm him as a mediator between man and God, between God and man and God. So at one point, Moses is up the mountain for 40 days and for 40 nights. 40 days and 40 nights, and that's always very important in our faith. 40 days and 40 nights, you and I are journeying through that desert of Lent right now. So Moses is up there, and the people go to Aaron. People go to Aaron. Aaron worked with Moses in speaking to Pharaoh. Aaron worked with Moses in speaking to the people. Isn't that always the will of God? That he is using a family, using one another. God's plan not only incorporates me, you, but incorporates everyone. And he relies so lovingly on each one of us, dependent on our own talents and traits. Moses himself knew that he wasn't talented enough to address the people, so Aaron helped. Aaron became his mouthpiece to the people. And so Moses is up the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights, and the people grumble to Aaron. They go to Aaron and they grumble. and they complain that Moses and the God of Moses abandoned them. And they demand from Aaron a God to worship. Think about that for a moment. Here they witnessed so many miracles of God, delivering them out of Egypt. God has been providing for them all along. All they had to do was wait a little longer, and God would have provided them with the miraculous, wonderful covenant, the law of the covenant. Well, the people couldn't wait, so they demanded from Aaron, "Give us a God, for this God of Moses had abandoned us." So in my opinion, again, you're going to have to talk to biblical scholars, Aaron was loyal to Moses. He was loyal to Adonai, Elohim, Yahweh. He was loyal to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So what does he do? Have you ever called anyone's bluff? Aaron calls the bluff of the people. So he tells them, "Give me the most precious thing you have. Let's see how serious you are in worshiping a false god." So what do? They give him the gold. They give him the gold. So Aaron calls their bluff. You can imagine how surprised Aaron would be to get their gold, the most precious item they had. Now, what did Aaron do? He wanted to further identify the absurdity of idolatry. So out of all the different gods that he could make out of the gold, he could have formed any god of Egypt, any god that they were familiar with, Isis, Horus, Ra, Hektet, any of them. But he doesn't. He forms the gold into the calf god. The calf god for the Egyptian people was the god Apis. Now sometimes we lose a little bit in the translation, but who was Apis? The god of fertility. Again, Aaron could have fashioned any god, but he chose the most obscure and vulgar god for the Israelites to worship. Why did he choose Apis? To demonstrate the absurdity of worshiping any god but Yahweh, any god but Elohim, Adonai, the God of gods, the Lord of hosts, the creator of all. And so Aaron fashions this golden calf, and he tells them, it's interesting, he tells them, if you and I were confused about Aaron calling their bluff, after he fashions the god, he tells them, tomorrow we're going to have a feast, but we're not going to have a feast of the golden calf, we're going to have a feast of Yahweh, thinking that the people understood the absurdity of their request. And so he goes to bed, and the people go to bed. The following day, Aaron is preparing for the feast of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. What do the people do? They begin to worship the golden calf. The golden calf. Now, because we might have people who are under 18, and I don't want to get vulgar, think about it for a moment. Apis, according to Egyptian mythology, is the god of fertility. How do you think people in Egypt would worship a god of fertility? Yeah, it would be quite graphic. Quite graphic. So what does Aaron do? He leaves the camp. He leaves the camp. Now, while that is happening, Moses is up and down, up the mountain, praying before God, acting as a mediator between God and the people and God. He's being dictated to by God. God is speaking to him. And then an interesting dialogue begins to happen. God tells Moses, your people, who you led out of Egypt, they have abandoned me. I will make you a new people. Moses then goes back at God. Why should we abandon the people? Why should you make me a new people? If you abandon them, all they're going to say is that God delivered us only to deliver us to death. Moses and Aaron, in a way, are challenging each other. Moses is challenging the mediator relationship that God is challenging Moses with his role as mediator, do you understand that being a mediator not only is about leading, but also about discipline? And Moses is reminding God, you are ultimately the deliverer. I am only your instrument. And Moses and God remind each other of their beautiful role. God is the victor. God is the leader. God is the conqueror. Moses is the mediator. So Moses goes down the mountain. And Moses goes all the way down the mountain, and you can imagine the feeling. Imagine all the drama. Moses running away from the home of Pharaoh, going to Midian, marrying Zipporah, the daughter of Jethro, encountering the burning bush, and being called to go fight for his people who are dying in slavery. The drama of challenging Pharaoh in the house where he grew up, being rejected by Pharaoh, being rejected by his own people, and yet still being the mouthpiece of God with Aaron. The drama of watching every plague happen. The plagues not only happened to the Egyptians, but it also happened to his Jewish loved ones. Watching his home destroyed. And then, through Passover, watching the people become delivered through the Red Sea. And then their journey to the Holy Land. And now he is up on the mountain being dictated to by God a law for the people's life and health. And what happens while he's up there praying? The people not only abandon God, but they abandon him. So he goes down the mountain. And as he comes down the mountain, Aaron meets him. Aaron meets him at the gate. Why does Aaron meet him at the gate? Because one, Aaron doesn't want to have anything to do with what's happening in the camp. But also two, Aaron is on the lookout for Moses. Aaron, again, is a mediator. As Moses is a mediator between God and man and God, so too Aaron functions as a mediator between the people and Moses and the people. And so Aaron tells Moses, look, you hear that noise in the camp? Now I'm paraphrasing. But do you hear that noise in the camp? Tomorrow we have an enemy we have to fight. The people, they're having a little battle cry, having a little pep rally. Again, I'm paraphrasing. It doesn't say the words pep rally in the Bible. Moses looks Aaron right in the eye and he goes, I know what I hear. That's not a battle cry. Moses knows what's happening. There's a beautiful drama, or better yet, a painful drama that unfolds. And Moses, again, will function in a mediator role, not leading, but disciplining. He ends up correcting the people radically. And then, what does he do? He takes their gold, their precious gold, and he makes them eat it. He makes them eat it. It sounds kind of graphic, and certainly it is. Again, I would encourage you to read line by line Exodus 32. The very gold that was used as an instrument of idolatry, the people now must eat as punishment. Again, you and I have said many times that God is delivering the people out of Egypt so that Egypt can come out of their heart. The analogy that Moses is trying to demonstrate is that the people have not and refuse to leave Egypt in their heart. They refuse to say goodbye to sin. Have you and I ever heard of a beautiful man named St. Augustine of Hippo? St. Augustine is a powerful, powerful character in our faith. He was a man who had tried everything, but never tried God. His mom, Monica, had converted to Christianity, and she prayed and prayed for her son. For those of you who are parents, if you want someone to help you praying for your children, pray to St. Monica. Monica prayed for Augustine. And at one point, Augustine was close to a conversion. And so one day he was actually discerning, should I turn to the God in Christianity? And he was thinking about all the different enjoyments in life, the different cardinal sins: lust, greed, pride, envy, all of them, gluttony. He thought about every deadly sin. And in prayer, he could almost hear them say, "You're not really ready to say goodbye to us, are you?" In that moment, he decided, no. For him, sin was too comfortable. It was what he knew. And so he continued to lead a life of debauchery, a life of lying, a life of falling into every single deadly sin, all because he was too afraid to let go. It wasn't until the death of his son and an interesting moment of prayer, a powerful moment of prayer, that God penetrated and saturated his heart. 2,000 years ago, on the cross, Jesus said to his Father, through his actions, "Look at him, look at her. I am willing to die that they might have eternal life." It was the time for Jesus to abandon himself of all earthly comfort. Think about that for a moment. Jesus abandoned himself of all earthly comfort. If you're in doubt of that, look at Psalm 22, which begins with that exclaiming phrase, my God, why have you abandoned me? Lema, lema sabachthani. My God, why have you abandoned me? Jesus allowed all earthly and human comfort to be abdicated from him. Why? Because it was the right time and the right way for you and I to be loved and to become beloved sons and daughters again. The year 2020 is absolutely unique. A moment like none other. I was reading a little bit about the life and the death of St. John Paul II. And in it, in April of 2005, a week before he died, the papal preacher, a man named Father Raniero Cantalmessa, told the papal household, "It is not Easter without John Paul II." And so too, 2020, it doesn't feel like we are a family without you here and without us together. But we are. It was the right time in the life of Augustine for him to say goodbye to darkness, to say goodbye to death, so that he might live in a greater light, that he might live the life that he was intended. The world has never, ever been the same because Augustine was able and willing, through the grace of God, to say goodbye to darkness and sin. And so too, the world is absolutely ready. The world right now is very interesting and very unique, but the world was crying out in the 4th century for St. Augustine's conversion. The world was crying out in the 20th century for the beautiful witness of St. John Paul II, who could testify to the dignity of human life. The world was ready for that. The world was ready for St. Maximilian Kolbe when he laid down his life so that a young married man could go free. The world was ready for St. Therese to pray for you and I, pour out flowers. The world was ready for Mother Teresa, and the world is absolutely ready for you and I to say goodbye to sin. Sin is never good enough for us. To say goodbye to vice, a dark habit. To say goodbye to unforgiveness, and to live the way that God called us to live. St. Augustine has that beautiful, beautiful prayer. O beauty so ancient, yet ever new. Too late I have loved you, too late I have loved you. What a beautiful, beautiful moment. You shone through and you chased away my blindness. You spoke and you chased away my deafness. You breathed your fragrance upon me, and even now do I gasp for you. You have made me, O Lord, to live forever in your love, and my heart will not rest until it rests in you. Eye has not seen, ear has not heard, nor has it even dawned on the heart of man what God is ready for those who love him. The time to say goodbye to sin, death, and suffering is today. The time to say hello and to welcome life, light, and happiness is absolutely right now. The future doesn't begin tomorrow. The future begins right now when you and I are not afraid to step forward and be the saint that God needs for 2020. I would like to end today with our beautiful prayer for peace. Our Jewish beloved brothers and sisters begin their Passover tonight. Again, what a beautiful high point for their faith. Every time, every moment they celebrate Passover, they are re-entering that beautiful moment of their family tree when God delivered them out of Egypt. God delivered the Israelite people out of Egypt, and he is continuing to work with our older brothers and sisters in faith, the Jewish faith. What I will repeat is called the Osha Shalom, which is the Jerusalem prayer for peace. I'm going to say it in English because my Hebrew is really not good. May he who makes peace in the heavens, may he who makes the peace in the heavens make peace upon you and upon me and upon all of Israel. And in his holy name we all pray. Amen. Have a good afternoon.